Angel Mine was the very first film to get interim film commission funding. I basically turned up with 10 minutes of footage, which the interim film commission loved, and I walked out with a check for $19,000. I was coming out of my university degree, so I was full of Marxism and Roland Barthes, Herbert Marcuse, so it was actually a film that was looking at how we've all got caught up in false needs through commercials. And in a way, it was the very first film that looked at people relating to each other through other media. And of course now, vis-a-vis Twitter and Facebook, everyone now is in fact relating to each other through media. Angel Mine also predicted Viagra. Angel Mine was an adult strength preparation for married couples with marital problems. I had no idea that it was going to cause so much controversy, and the vehemence of some of the critics was quite shocking to me, being told that my stuff was the crap that would feed the roses to come, and yeah, it really, in a way, it set me back, and the truth is that after the initial controversy of Angel Mine, I put the film in the cupboard, so to speak, and it was really another 10 to 15 years before I could even look at it again. When I finally did come back to Angel Mine, I actually realized that it was a really significant film, a young film, but a significant film, and as the years have gone by, it's now actually considered one of the canon of, you know, the New Zealand cinema. And I'm very proud of it, and it's got a lot of forensic stuff now when you look at it, because it was New Zealand in the 70s. It was a fantastic experience. It was working with a really great crew of people. Murray Newey was the producer. Kevin Chisnell was the special effects guy, and we did a series of effects that had really never been done before in this country. The fascinating thing about Death Warmed Up is that it was, because it mixed satire with a Hollywood horror genre, the local critics just went all out and hated it. And the film was not really very successful here. Yet in Europe and England, it was a major cult horror film. And whenever I travel overseas, people are astonished to discover that here in New Zealand, Death Warmed Up's not even perceived as one of the key films in that genre. And of course, it was the very first horror film in New Zealand, well before Peter Jackson. The tragedy of Death Warmed Up is that the National Film Unit, as it was, I think, known at the time, managed to burn the original 16mm negative. We have a 35mm Interneg blow-up, but unfortunately we cannot find it. So it's been a rather sad tale. Some little voice in my head told me, and this was right at the beginning of my career, that I needed to get my grandfather down on tape. And I think that probably came out of being at university and realizing that there was a whole generation of people that went to war that really didn't talk about it. So one of the very first things I did when I left university was actually record my grandfather. At the time, no one was interested. I went to the various TV networks. He was 90. No one was interested. But by the time he died, suddenly everyone was interested, because what I had was an articulate, speaking First World War soldier who had the wonderful capacity to analyze and actually make comments on what happened rather than just tell it from inside the story. He was able to stand outside and make comments, which made him quite unique. I wanted to show that in that time, king and country had a significance and a force that we no longer have. Like, we're all not going to just jump up and go off to fight for the Queen of England like they all did. But I think also the First World War was a defining moment in the fledgling New Zealand nationhood and statehood, and it's really our first world stage performance, if you like, and it's ironic that it turned out to be war. I got to a point where I realized that I'd lost track of my real originality in my attempt to somehow conform to what I thought the market wanted. Or to put it another way, my film career was over, and I knew I had to reinvent myself. So yes, I've made a film, a sympathetic film about an extremely unsympathetic female character, if you like. And I'm also saying that there is a lot of violence and sexual abuse within the family, and that there are huge consequences. And those consequences are quite profound, and because I believe that abuse on all levels, whether it be emotional, physical, or spiritual, leads to a split in the personality. And that's where the two-headed doll, and that's where the film is a very much an exploration of what happens when abuse leads to that split in the mind. Doing Wound was so therapeutic. It was like the lights just switched back on for me. It was the most fantastic experience. I had a tremendously good time with the cast. It was the best film I've ever done in that way. It was, and with the crew as well. We all came out of that film, despite it being a 12-day, very long-hour, quite intense shoot. The respect that everyone came out of that film with was enormous, because we actually got to make something that had a reality about it, that had an intrinsic depth. It wasn't about, you know, a bunch of women being slashed by some weirdo guy. It was actually, you know, looking at some powerful issues within the family. I like to see myself as a guy that looks at the horror within the everyday. So really, all I've got is the fact that I was born this way with a slightly different perspective on on how everyone else perceives the world. And that's been my life work, and in a way, cinema is like a religion to me. I'd like to think I've actually remained pure, and that if you look from Angel Mind through to Wound, you'll actually see a consistent body of work. And now for me it's about, you know, getting a few more credits before I go, because that's really all that's going to be left are these films. And some of them are already deteriorating, which is kind of depressing, but for me, I need to make films for my own sanity.